Chuck Norris couldn't or wouldn't do. The 86-year-old, long deemed invincible, has died suddenly, leaving his legion of fans in shock.
There is a particular kind of silence that descends on the world when a legend finally leaves it. Not the noisy grief of a sudden tragedy, not the prepared mourning of a long illness publicly announced, just a quiet, unexpected stillness. That was the silence that settled over Hollywood, over Texas, over martial arts studios and living rooms and internet comment sections on the morning of March 20th, 2026, when the Norris family posted a message that nobody, despite every death hoax that had come before, was truly ready to read. It is with heavy hearts that our family shares the sudden passing of our beloved Chuck Norris yesterday morning, the statement began. The family noted that while they would like to keep the circumstances private, he was surrounded by his family and was at peace. Those words, careful, loving, and heartbroken, all at once, went out to a world that had spent years joking about this man's immortality. The internet had declared him dead in fake news posts, satirical memes, and viral hoaxes more times than anyone could count. Claims had circulated that he succumbed to COVID-19 in 2020, that he was on the brink of death in a hospital in 2022, and that he had been killed in a fatal car incident in 2025. None of it was true. But on March 19, 2026, the real thing happened quietly, in Hawaii, and the family's grief was real and raw in a way that no hoax had ever prepared the public to witness. Chuck Norris had been hospitalized in Hawaii on Thursday, one day before his death on Friday. Based on early reports, Norris had a sudden medical emergency, and his family said he died peacefully while surrounded by loved ones. No official cause of death has been released. What the family chose to share instead of medical details was something far more revealing: a portrait of who Chuck Norris really was behind every roundhouse kick, every tough guy one-liner, every meme, and every myth. The family's statement described him as a devoted husband, a loving father and grandfather, an incredible brother, and the heart of their family. They said he lived with faith, purpose, and an unwavering commitment to the people he loved. And then they closed their statement with a line that stopped people mid-scroll everywhere it appeared. They thanked the world for loving him. That choice of words tells you more about the man than any film ever did. And now that he is gone, the question every financial journalist, every estate attorney, and every curious fan began asking immediately was the same. What exactly did Chuck Norris leave behind? The answer, confirmed across multiple credible sources, is a fortune estimated at approximately $70 million. That figure reflects a career built across several income streams, including film and television acting, television production, martial arts instruction, book publishing, endorsements, and other business ventures. But the number alone, as significant as it is, does not begin to capture the full story of how it was built, what it cost, or why the people receiving it wept when they heard the news. To understand how a fortune of $70 million is built, you have to go back to a place most people have never heard of. Carlos Ray Norris was born in Ryan, Oklahoma, to Irish American and Cherokee Native American parents. There was nothing in his early years to suggest greatness was coming. His father was a World War II veteran whose return from war had not gone smoothly, and the family moved repeatedly, chasing work that never paid enough. Following his parents' divorce, Norris, his mother, and two younger brothers relocated to Prairie Village, Kansas, and then to Torrance, California. By the time he graduated high school in the late 1950s, he was, by his own later admission, a slightly built, non-athletic teenager who had never truly succeeded at anything demanding. He enlisted in the United States Air Force the same year he finished high school, and the Air Force sent him to South Korea. That posting, unremarkable on paper, changed the entire direction of his life. Norris became acquainted with the world of martial arts while stationed in Korea with the U.S. Air Force in the late 1950s. He found a Tang Soo Do class at Osan Air Base and threw himself into it with a focus that surprised everyone around him, including himself. He trained obsessively, not just for fitness, but because martial arts gave him something he had never had before, a belief that he could master difficult things. In 13 months, He earned his black belt. It was the first genuinely hard thing he had ever accomplished on his own, and it rewrote the story he told himself about who he was. When he returned to civilian life, the man who had been invisible in high school was a different person. I started training over there, and then I came back and got out of the service and started teaching, and to get students in my school, I became a karate fighter, Norris once explained. He built a chain of karate studios across Southern California, teaching celebrities including Priscilla Presley and Bob Barker. Among Norris's many students were Priscilla Presley, the Osmonds, Steve McQueen, and Bob Barker, who famously recounted incurring cracked ribs after being kicked in the side by Norris during training. He became a professional karate champion, and his reputation in martial arts circles grew until it reached the ears of one of the most important figures of that era. Bruce Lee found Chuck Norris at a tournament in New York City in 1967 and sought him out afterward. The two trained together for years, debating fighting philosophies, pushing each other to improve. Then Lee called in a favor. He was making a film in Rome called Way of the Dragon, and needed someone capable of giving the film's climactic fight sequence real authenticity. He wanted the audience to believe that the villain at the Roman Colosseum was genuinely dangerous, so dangerous that defeating him would mean something. Chuck Norris's first memorable acting role was as Bruce Lee's formidable opponent in the 1972 film The Way of the Dragon. The film became a landmark of martial arts cinema, and Chuck Norris became globally recognizable for being the man Bruce Lee defeated on screen. It was, in the most unusual way imaginable, a career-making defeat. Steve McQueen, who had trained under Norris for years, saw something in his former instructor that went beyond fighting ability. McQueen encouraged him to pursue acting, saying that if he would apply himself like he did the martial arts, he would maybe have a chance at it. Norris took that advice seriously. He enrolled in acting classes at MGM Studios and approached the craft with the same methodical intensity he had brought to martial arts. His early paychecks were extremely modest. Norris earned just $10,000 for his 1976 debut Breaker, which jumped to $40,000 for Good Guys Wear Black the following year, then $125,000 for A Force of One in 1978, and $250,000 for An Eye for an Eye by 1980. Those numbers tell a story of grinding, incremental progress. When no major distributor would take a chance on Good Guys Wear Black, Norris and his producers rented the theaters themselves, city by city, screen by screen. The film earned far more than it cost, and Hollywood took notice. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Norris made a name for himself as a rugged action hero in movies like Missing in Action and Delta Force, marking his place in pop culture with an always stoic countenance. By the early 1990s, he had built a loyal audience, but his film career was cooling, and the thing that would transform him from a successful action star into a permanent fixture of American television culture was still just around the corner. On April 21, 1993, Walker, Texas Ranger premiered on CBS. Nobody who watched that first episode could have guessed they were watching the birth of one of the most financially significant television franchises in Chuck Norris's life. Norris won new fans with his long-running series Walker, Texas Ranger, which ran from 1993 to 2001. In the show, Norris played Cordell Walker, a veteran Texas Ranger who fights crime in Dallas and throughout the Lone Star State. The early days were genuinely precarious. The production company that had funded the pilot went bankrupt in the middle of the first season, and the show came frighteningly close to ending before it had truly begun. What saved it was the audience. The premiere numbers came back enormous, and CBS scrambled to find new financing partners to keep the show on the air. What followed was 9 seasons and 203 episodes of television produced entirely in Texas, making it the first primetime drama in American history to achieve that distinction. His salary exploded when he landed the starring role in Walker, Texas Ranger, where he commanded $375,000 per episode across 203 episodes, a figure that dwarfed every other cast member on the show. Beyond his acting fees, Norris had negotiated a profit participation clause that entitled him to 23% of all profits from the franchise. He controlled creative direction through his production company, insisted on morally grounded storylines consistent with his Christian faith, and employed his brother Aaron as co-producer. The Norris brothers delivered 9 years of on-budget, on-time production, a feat that CBS executives publicly praised. When the show ended in 2001 and entered syndication, the money kept flowing. Syndication deals multiplied the show's revenue across decades. The franchise became a globally recognized brand, airing in more than 100 countries. And then the trouble began. In 2018, he filed a lawsuit against CBS, claiming the network owed him more than $30 million in profits from Walker, Texas Ranger. The details of that lawsuit paint a picture of how Hollywood accounting can be used to quietly redirect money away from the people who earned it. His contract had entitled him to 23% of all profits, but Norris argued CBS structured the show's distribution deals, including streaming revenue going back to 2004, in ways that deliberately avoided triggering the profit-sharing clause. For years, he had received no reporting from CBS on streaming revenue whatsoever. The lawsuit alleged this was not an oversight, but a deliberate structural decision designed to avoid paying him what his contract promised. The case dragged through the courts for 5 years, an enormously expensive and emotionally draining process for a man in his 80s who was also dealing with serious personal challenges at home. Whatever CBS ultimately paid to resolve that dispute became part of the estate his family is now inheriting. The settlement amount was not publicly disclosed, as is standard in these types of cases, but the fact that the suit was settled rather than dismissed tells its own story. A man with no legitimate case does not receive a private settlement from one of the most powerful television networks in the world. The CBS lawsuit is not simply a legal footnote. It is central to understanding the full $70 million figure. Without his aggressive pursuit of the profits he was contractually owed, the fortune his family is inheriting would almost certainly have been considerably smaller. Acting fees and lawsuit settlements are only part of the picture. At the time of his death, Chuck Norris's net worth was widely estimated at around $70 million. Figure reflects a career built across several income streams, including film and television acting, television production, martial arts instruction, book publishing, endorsements, and other business ventures. The Total Gym Partnership is one of the most successful celebrity fitness ventures in television history. The infomercial ran for nearly 3 decades across 85 countries, selling over 4 million units and generating revenue long after Norris's film career had slowed. After his death, his co-host Christie Brinkley stated publicly that bringing her on board had been Chuck's idea entirely, and that she was forever grateful for the partnership. It remains one of the longest-running celebrity endorsement relationships in American commercial television. The Lone Wolf Ranch in Navasota, Texas, is perhaps the most tangible expression of who Chuck Norris was in the final chapter of his life. Approximately 1,000 acres in Grimes County, it became the family's full-time home after Norris stepped away from Hollywood. His business ventures include the Lone Wolf Ranch Dog Food Company, which continues to operate under family management. The ranch also became the site of one of the most unexpected business discoveries of his life. Workers drilling for water on the property struck an ancient artesian aquifer, and that accidental find led Chuck and Gina to found Sea-Force Bottling Company, a premium water business built around the ranch's natural supply. Sea-Force Water now sells across the continental United States, and Gina holds a controlling majority stake in the company as its CEO, meaning the business remains entirely in her hands as the rest of the estate is divided among the family. Norris also owned valuable real estate. According to The Independent, he had owned a home on the North Shore of Kauai since 2015, valued at roughly $7 million, where he had been spending time shortly before his death. That oceanfront property, the place where he took his final vacation, and the place where his medical emergency occurred, is both a piece of the estate and a deeply personal symbol of what his life became in its later years. A man who had built something from nothing and chose to spend his final seasons surrounded by beauty, family, and the ocean. Chuck Norris's $70 million estate is set to be divided among 6 close family members following his death, with his wife and 5 children expected to inherit the bulk of his fortune. Understanding who those 6 people are and how they came to be part of his life requires understanding the full arc of a man whose personal story was considerably more complicated than his public image suggested. Norris's wife, Gina O'Kelly, is an actress and former model whom he married in 1998. She is the mother of 2 of his children, twins Dakota and Danilee, who were born in 2001. The twins grew up on the Texas ranch, surrounded by land that their father had built into a genuine family legacy. At 24, they are the youngest of his 5 children, and the ones who knew him most intimately in his final years as a full-time rancher and family man rather than a Hollywood figure. Norris also had 2 sons with his first wife, Diane Holchek: Mike, who was born in 1962, and Eric, who was born in 1965. Mike followed his father's faith into the world of Christian filmmaking. Eric built one of the most respected careers in Hollywood stunt coordination, working behind the camera on major productions and earning recognition as a genuine craftsman of his art. His sons from his first marriage represent a generation that watched their father become a legend from a different vantage point, closer, more complicated, and more human than the television audience ever saw. And then there is Dina. In a 2004 interview with Entertainment Tonight, Norris revealed that he had learned he had a daughter, Dina, born in 1964. Dina's story is one of the most quietly remarkable chapters in the entire Chuck Norris narrative. She grew up knowing her father's name, but following her mother's specific instruction not to make contact while he was still married. For 26 years, she carried that knowledge silently. When Chuck and Diane's divorce became public, Dina wrote a letter, and what followed was a reunion that Norris described in his 2004 memoir as one of the most profoundly moving moments of his life. He wrote that when he saw her standing in his living room, he knew immediately, without any test or documentation, that she was his daughter. He could see his own face looking back at him. They both wept. He welcomed her fully into the family, and she has been a recognized part of the Norris family ever since. That reunion also gave the world one of the most quoted things Chuck Norris ever said outside of a film, that while there may be illegitimate parents in the world, there are no illegitimate children. Equals off the balance sheet, Norris poured significant energy into giving back. In 1990, he founded Kickstart Kids, originally called the Kick Drugs Out of America Foundation, which provides free martial arts and character development programs to middle and high school students. Launched in 4 Houston area schools with the support of President George H.W. Bush in 1992, the program now operates in 58 schools across Texas, has served over 120,000 students since its inception, and currently enrolls approximately 8,349 students annually. People who knew Chuck Norris well said consistently that Kickstart Kids was the accomplishment he was most proud of. Not Walker Texas Ranger, not the karate championships, not the Hollywood films, a program that put a martial arts instructor in front of a room full of teenagers and taught them that discipline, consistently applied, builds something inside you that follows you for the rest of your life. He knew that truth personally. He had lived it. He had gone from being an invisible teenager with no confidence and no direction to a 6-time world karate champion, a Hollywood action star, and the founder of a $70 million estate, all because a Tang Soo Do class in South Korea had given him the belief that he could do hard things. Norris himself said the program teaches kids how to make good decisions, and research tied to it shows participants demonstrate higher self-esteem, lower drug use, and less violence. That is the legacy that no financial figure can capture. It is the part of what he built that will outlast the movies, outlast the memes, and outlast any argument about his politics or his public statements. It is 120,000 young people who learned because of him that they are capable of hard things. Just days before his death, he celebrated his 86th birthday and posted a video of himself sparring on social media, joking that he wasn't getting older but leveling up. That video, watched by millions in the days after his death, became one of the most bittersweet pieces of footage circulating online. Here was a man of 86 in Hawaii, in the sun, still moving, still training,